Dobrý den, zdravím vás u dalšího videa. Hello, welcome to another video. Today we are going to speak about prefixes, verb prefixes of course, and I am going to teach you the verb prefix s or se. Believe it or not, the verb prefix s is actually quite challenging for us Czechs too, because we also have a prefix z, and sometimes it can sound identical and we don't know whether to spell a certain verb or adjective or noun with z or s. Let me give you an example with this homophone. Let me read these two sentences that I wrote. Stěžuješ mi práci, ty si pořád stěžuješ. Did you hear any difference? If you didn't, it's alright, because actually there is no difference with these two words, except for the spelling. Here is stěžuješ, from stěžovat, to make something more difficult. From těžký, which is heavy, to make things heavy or difficult. Stěžovat, s. And stěžuješ, spelled with an S, it's stěžovat. Exactly the same, except this one usually come with si. And that means to complain. As a metaphoric meaning, it would be to make things heavier, difficult by complaining. Stěžovat, stěžovat. And why is that? Because of regressive assimilation. The T here affects the letter Z, which is voiced, and T is voiceless, so they become both voiceless. Stěžovat. And here nothing happens because they are both voiceless. And this happens with a couple of other words. So don't feel bad, because all of us Czechs had to write dictations and fill in countless exercises for the s versus z, the s versus the z prefix in the basic school. Because sometimes you cannot just hear that difference. Sometimes they sound exactly the same. But in today's video we are going to focus on the s or se prefix. Jdeme na to. As usual, I separated the use into different categories. These categories are actually something we all have to study at school to be able to distinguish the difference between the S or Z prefix. So we had to memorize this. When we speak about the prefix S, it's often focused on directions in a certain way. And the first direction is together, direction together. First verb is sejít se, which means to come together, to gather. On foot, or simply when you say that we all met, we all gathered. For example, sešli jsme se tu všichni. We all gathered here, we all met, we all came together for a party, for example, or for an announcement. If we wanted to emphasize that all of us came together and maybe it was far, so we all had to drive or take a bus, we could say sjet se, sjeli jsme se. Sjeli jsme se ze všech koutů republiky. We gathered from all the corners of the republic. Slepit. Lepit is to glue, to stick, and slepit is to glue together, like a paper airplane, for example. Slepili jsme letadílko. We glued the little plane together. Slepili. Zbalit. And here you actually might hear z, zbalit. We do pronounce z because the B influences the pronunciation here. Not here for some reason, although L is voiced. We don't say zlepit, but here we do say zbalit. And that means to pack. Balit, to be packing, imperfective verb, and zbalit is to pack all the things together. Jedu pryč a musím si zbalit věci. I'm leaving, so I have to pack my things. And by the way, zbalit also is a slang and has a metaphoric meaning, and it means to pick up a girl or a guy. So zbalit is to pack up and pick up. Sepsat, you can clearly see, comes from psát, to write, and when you write all the things together, it means you make a list. Sepíšeme seznam lidí na oslavu. we will make a list of people for the celebration. This would be the perfective form, and sepisovat would be the imperfective. You can also say sepisuju seznam. I'm making a list right now because I'm writing all the things together. Spočítat. Počítat is to count, and spočítat to count all of it. Now I have my list of guests, so I could say, spočítáme, kolik nás bude. So we will count how many of us will be there. Spočítat, to count together, like this. Sečíst, to read together. Okay, that doesn't make sense, but sečíst is to sum up. So you could say the same sentence. Sečteme, kolik nás bude. We will count or sum up all of us. But it's also mathematical operation. Sečíst, to sum up. It could also be to think about the pros and cons, to weigh pros and cons. There's a phrase that we often use. Sečteme všechna pro a proti. We will weigh all the pros and cons. And of course, instead of that, we could also use the actual verb to weigh, zvážit, but that one is with a Z, so I'm not going to use it here. We use both of them in this phrase. Sbírat, also with Z. Sbírat. Sbírat is to collect as a hobby and to pick fruit. We love to harvest things, you might know if you live in the Czech Republic. For example, in summer. V létě sbíráme borůvky. We pick blueberries in the summer. And splést se. Plést means to knit, and splést, when it doesn't have the se, it means literally to knit something together or like to intertwine. And splést se, it's to get all the things mixed up because you kind of intertwine them and knit them together. But it has to be with se. For example, you say something wrong and it was a wrong assumption, so you say, promiň, spletl jsem se. I'm sorry, I got confused, I got it wrong, I made a mistake. Spletl jsem se. I got myself knitted together. Seznámit se, from znát, to know. Seznámit se is to meet, to get to know each other. So when you use this verb, seznámit se, it means to meet, but for the first time. Mirek a Jitka se seznámili na dovolené. Mirek and Jitka met, they got to know each other on a vacation. And of course there are so many more meanings, and you can learn more in my additional worksheet. I would also like to point out the se versus s. The logical thing is that when you have the root verb that starts with two consonants, you should insert the E, you should vocalize it, right? But when you look at this, it goes against that logic, so jít, sejít se, versus sjet se. Here we have sepsat. This makes sense, yes, we have ps, but here we have pi. We still keep se. Spočítat, sečíst. So unlike the preposition s versus the vocalized version se, there is not really a logic behind this, and the way to learn it is just to memorize these words as they come. Don't think about it. The second direction is from top to bottom. Like for example, in my picture, there is a hill and then you go down the hill. Or spadnout, that would be. Something falls. Spadnout is to fall down. A very common sentence is that when you see a kid in the tree, you would say, be careful not to fall down. Pozor, ať nespadneš. Spadneš would be you will fall. Nespadneš. Ať nespadneš. Don't fall down is a wish. Do not fall down. By the way, the imperfective version would be padat, but that one is without the prefix. Padat. Padá sníh, the snow is falling. Ještě nepadá sníh. Sejít, and this time without se, means to walk down, go down. Sejít, like here, go down the hill. For example, a stranger is asking you where to find the bus stop or the tram stop. And it's just down the street, so you tell them. Sejdete ulici a pak už uvidíte zastávku. You will go down the street and then you will see the stop right there. And if that person was driving, you would say si jedete. So careful, this one does not have se, because se means to gather, it's mutual. Schodit is to knock something down. Kdo schodil ten květináč? Kdo schodil ten květináč means who knocked down the flower pot. And then your answer could be nikdo, to spadlo samo. Nobody, this fell by itself. Let's go back to the scene where the kid is up in the tree and we worry about them not to fall. And you can also say slez z toho stromu. Okamžitě slez z toho stromu. Get off that tree immediately. Les is to crawl or climb. So climb down. Slezd. Slez dolů. Very important. Get down. Sklízet is to harvest. This is actually imperfective. So, já sklízím, I'm harvesting. You can see it's actually similar to uklízet from the first video on prefixes. So, uklízet is to tidy up and sklízet is to harvest. You could imagine that you're harvesting fruit off the trees. For example, potatoes are not connected with sklízet. We say vybírat, which means to pick up potatoes. So it's related to movement. To sklízet would be like třešně, cherries, jablka, apples, hrušky, pears, švestky, plums. Harvest of the trees. Also of the field, like sklízet kukuřici, to harvest corn, sklízet pšenici, to harvest wheat. Například na podzim se sklízejí jablka a hrušky. In autumn, apples and pears are harvested. Here I added se in this sentence because it's actually passive voice. This fruit is being harvested. Our next category is direction away from the surface. Maybe some of these could be related to the following category, which is when something disappears, but it doesn't work 100% as I mentioned in the last video. You have to be tolerant to the Czech language. So away from the surface, like smít. Mít is to wash and smít is to wash off. For example, you paint your face for a costume party or with the Czech flag and then you want to wash it off, so you say jdu si smít tu barvu z obličeje. I'm going to wash this paint off my face. Smít. You could also say umít, which is to wash completely. It means the same thing, but just expressed slightly differently. To wash something off of the surface. Setřít is to do this, or to wipe off something. Setřel si pot z čela. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. Sebrat is to pick up off the surface. Like for example, something is on the ground. Sebrala jsem ze země ponožky. I pick up the socks from the ground. And there is another meaning which is rather metaphoric, and that's to take away, like confiscate. If somebody is fooling around too much with their phone, you could say, ten mobil ti seberu, I'm gonna take that phone away from you. Smazat, remember I was talking about mazat, and namazat is to spread. And smazat is exactly the opposite, like to remove something, to wipe something off, and also to delete. What I'm doing now is this verb, smazat. Mažu tabuli. I'm wiping the board, and smazala jsem tabuli. I wiped the board. I cleaned, I removed things off the board, and also delete, as I said. You're writing an email and then you say, tuhle část radši smažu. I'll better delete this part. Splatit comes from platit, obviously. Well, in Czech, things are not always obvious, so I take that back. Yes, in this case, it comes from platit, and it means to pay off the debt. You could say that we have a debt here, a physical debt, and then you remove it off that surface. Splatit, for example, kdy mi splatíš ten dluh? When will you pay me that debt? We also have splácet, which is the imperfective, splácet, to be paying the debt. And from that we have a noun, splátky, na splátky, when you buy something in installments, so you have to pay in parts. Our fourth category is talking about volume reduction or even extinction. So it's not exactly a direction. One of those verbs would be sneezed, to eat everything. You can see that the yeast, to eat, the imperfective, changed a little bit. So sneezed is the completed action of the verb yeast, to eat. You've planned a celebration and then you make these jednohubky, these little like canapés, these tapas, bite-sized snacks. And when they're eaten, you say, snědli jsme všechny jednohubky. We've eaten all the jednohubky, all the canapés. And if you want to make it a little bit more interesting, you can even use the verb sežrat, which means to devour. It's related more to animal eating something, but you can emphasize that somebody really devoured the meal. Sežrali jsme všechny jednohubky. We just devoured all of them. Schnít, we pronounce ch, progressive assimilation, that also happens. So it's schnít. Well, in some regions it's also pronounced as zhnít, but the majority of the Republic would say schnít. And this means to rot. Something shrinks and becomes smaller and completely decays. Well, we've harvested the apples and then we put them in a wrong spot. So, všechna jablka schnila. All the apples have rotten. So, schnila. Schnilý is a very useful adjective. Schnilý is rotten. And if you take away the s, hnít is that imperfective verb to be decaying. Schořet is to completely burn. Also pronounced as sch. Všechno dřevo už schořelo. All the wood burned completely. Srazit se is to shrink. Svetr se v sušičce srazil. The sweater shrunk in the dryer. A už jsme u konce. Moje video za chvíli skončí. Skončit. The fifth category is collocations. I bet it's your favorite category. So skončit is to end, to finish. A finished action of the verb končit. Koncert končí. The concert is finishing. Koncert skončí za půl hodiny. The concert will finish in half an hour. Remember, I was comparing the verb ukončit in my video about the prefix u, which means more to terminate, and it's more of a specific term. And skončit has a broader, more general meaning. Sdělit, pronounced with z, sdělit. It's to tell somebody news, to share. It's very proper verb, very formal. Chci vám sdělit, co bude dál. I want to tell you, I want to share with you what will happen next. This is perfective, and imperfective would be sdílet, to share a piece of information, but also to share on social media. This actually is the share button in Czech. Sdílet. Sdílet na Facebooku a na Instagramu. Stěžovat si, we had at the beginning, to complain. Nestěžuj si pořád. Don't complain all the time. That would be the imperative. And the last verb is schovat se, to hide. It doesn't have to be reflexive also. Schovat would be to hide something, and schovat se is to hide oneself. For example, děti se schovaly ve skříni. The children hid in the closet. And from that we have the game called schovávaná. Schovávaná, hide and seek. The hiding game. Schovávaná or schovka. To je ode mě všechno. Venku už se stmívá. It's getting dark outside already. It's another example of the prefix. As usual, there is a worksheet for you if you want to learn more examples or have all these examples written in one document and extra exercises. Check out this page and get my worksheet. I hope that you enjoyed this video and find the examples practical. Don't forget to use them. And if you enjoy my videos, you can share with others. Můžete sdílet s ostatními. Ciao. Also, don't forget that my course Čeština na gauči is still on discount until the 20th of November. You can learn 121 words with fun videos, fun and short videos. And also you can print out a 70-page book and have all these awesome exercises. Co je nabíječka? Nabíječka je tohle.